All righty. Welcome back to another episode of the Rock Your Brand podcast. Today, we are going to be talking about a very, very serious topic. And it is one that, has been being talked about out there in the Etsy community, but also in the print on demand community. And I wanted to address this. I also wanted to talk real talk, meaning, Chris and I, we do have trainings around Etsy. Do we still believe in Etsy? Yes. But are we going to sugarcoat things? No. So we don't want to be, we don't even like to classify ourselves as Etsy gurus, but we do have some experience and we have generated a significant amount of money. I say we, my wife included, and we are thinking to ourselves, what does this mean for Etsy and the future? And is this the death of Etsy? Is it the death of e-commerce? Because, some would argue and say print on demand, yeah, that's part of e-commerce, but what about like Amazon? They came in and took out a lot of e-commerce websites and businesses, or did they? I don't know. But what we're going to do today is we're going to get to it. We're just going to talk about this openly, honestly, but also I want to let you guys know, I want to give you a heads up that this is, there is some things happening, but do I look at this as we're just going to jump ship? This is a bad thing? No, I actually think that there's a lot of good in this. And I've talked about this before because we've always had times when we were selling on Amazon for several years, and there was always talk of, Amazon is, it's not what it used to be, or Google isn't what it used to be, or YouTube isn't what it used to be. And then some would argue and say, it's actually better. So that's the conversation we're going to have today. But more importantly, we are going to be talking about what kind of steps we are taking, and are we going to be jumping ship? And I'll tell you right off the bat here, no, we are not jumping ship, but we do have a plan, and we are going to walk through that plan. I also want to hear from you. I actually did a poll. I've got some numbers here that I want to share with you, but I did a poll here on the community tab inside of YouTube, and it's pretty interesting. But I would like to know from you right now in the comments. Let us know, are you feeling as though your numbers are lower than last year? Just let me know. Show of hands. Let me know in the comments. If you're watching this on the replay, you can always chime in and let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you too. So with that all being said, I've got a lot of notes here that I want to go over because, like I said, I spent a little bit of time here going through this for ourselves, but also to kind of like relay this message back to you so you can decide. Is it time for you to hang it up, or is it time for you to double down and get down on it, as Kool and the Gangs would say, or that they said, I believe it was, Chris. So Chris, why don't you get in here with me and let's start this conversation.
You can't say get down on it and then bring me in the room while I'm over here dancing to get down on it.
Sure we can.
All right. Just not how that I guess my dancing is bad enough that we won't get a copyright strike, and so is my singing. So I'm not that worried about it. I think the thing that everybody wants to know, Scott, is what is the future of Etsy, right? We seem to live in these tiny little bubbles where we say, oh my God, sales are up this week. It's a new beginning. Or, oh my God, sales are down this week. It's the end of Etsy. It's the death of selling on Etsy. And to the point you just made, I think it's something extremely important for people to understand. Nothing stays the same. No opportunities will ever stay the same over a 3, 5, or 10-year period. Scott, I want to ask you a question, because you said, Google is dead, YouTube is dead, Amazon is dead. Are there still opportunities on all of those platforms to start a business today, or to start a channel in the case of YouTube, to create a website in the case of Google, to create a private label business, or a drop shipping business, or a straight up e-commerce business using Amazon as the backbone of that? Before we dive into the Etsy side of this, it's something you said, and I don't want people to take it the wrong way. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on, are there still opportunities, even though people are saying, hey, it's dead, there's nothing here anymore?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to me, there's always opportunity where others feel there's no opportunity. I think that's something that we need to understand. And I think once you have what I like to call marketing chops, you can take those and you can bring them into a place of opportunity. Is Etsy going to go out of business? I don't believe that's the case. If that was the case, then I would say, okay, this could be the death of Etsy, but I don't believe that's going to happen. Are there still going to be opportunities on this platform? Absolutely, 100%. And we've already seen it, and we all also have heard from Etsy themselves, not directly, but that they are creating more opportunities. But it's not going to be the old-fashioned spray and pray and just launch a whole bunch of products. And really, to me, it's like the lazy Etsy seller. That's kind of how I'm looking at it. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I mean, like, you didn't have to do as much work before. You didn't have to really understand e-commerce that much, because all you had to do was just put up your products, lightly optimize, and then you were going to start getting sales. That was like the good old days, right? The lazy Etsy selling strategy, if you will, right? That's what I look at there. I look at YouTube the same way. YouTube is way different than it was when I started 15 plus years ago, but actually it's better. Even though there's more competition, there's more opportunity for me to get exposure. Even on a new channel that my son and I started, we're getting new exposure to a brand new, brand that we are over there playing around with. But even on YouTube for the brand creators channel, there's better opportunities there for us. But is it like it used to be? No. Okay. Are there more people trying to compete? Yes. But that's where it comes down to us really understanding marketing, but also understanding where the opportunities lie. Okay. And for the people that are just hearing about, and they're seeing the gurus out there, I'm still seeing them, which kind of drives me insane, by the way. And I did a rant last week, and it's probably going to air as a clip coming up. Maybe it already did. I don't remember. I think it already did. But the point I'm trying to make here is like, you're still going to see, the mug. I've got a glass here today, a mug, and it's going to say, make $5,000 a month with these mugs. I'm not saying that because I don't believe that. I think it's not true. I don't think you're going to be able to do that anymore. I think it's going to take, and it's going to require more work, but it's also going to require more skill. All right. So Chris, I don't know if I answered that completely, but I went on a little bit of a rant, but that's my thoughts on that. I think there's a great amount of opportunity for all of us, but it isn't going to be easy.
And I think that's the thing. And we did use a little bit of a hyperbolic headline here, right? The death of Etsy sellers, because that's what everybody's saying. Like, oh my God, the sky has already fallen.
Right.
And if we look at traffic week over week, Scott, and this is something we've been talking about the last few weeks since that October 1st update, paid traffic is still down by like 4 or 5 million visits over where it was in September. Organic traffic is slowly sneaking up, like 1 million or 2 million visits a week, if we're using Ahrefs as the example. Again, these are traffic estimates. So we are starting to see that increase in traffic coming back into Etsy. But on the paid side, where we're talking a big gain or loss when they turn levers on and off for ads, there's still a huge drop off there. And actually, it's still dropping week over week. And we've talked about why that could be. But even when they start running those ads again, which will probably happen, I don't know, in about 11 days from now, if I have the purse strings, right? Probably maybe the first Wednesday in November is when they're going to really start cranking that up. And if you are an American, you probably understand why that might be. But I think even with that, we've seen a bunch of reports recently, and I know we're going to get into this, about some things that are going on at Etsy, which is what's really leading people. It's not just the October 1st update and their drop in paid ad spend through October. There's a lot of things that have contributed to this. And I think, to your point, it's not to say that there's not an opportunity here. There's still a massive opportunity here. But the way that we approach this has to be different than it was in the past. Just like when Amazon made a bunch of changes back in, good God, 2018.
Yeah.
And everybody said, oh my God, they got rid of reviews. Like the way that everybody was doing reviews. Nobody will ever be able to launch a product on Amazon ever again.
Right.
Guess what still happens every single day? People launch products on Amazon and they build multiple $100,000 or multi-million-dollar businesses using that model. It just means we have to change our behavior if we're thinking about getting started or if we're thinking about growing our existing business. I think the other message that everybody needs to take away from this is something you and I have been talking about for the last, I don't know, 7 years, which is don't ever be 100% platform dependent, right? If we control our own destiny, then having something like Etsy, which is a great place to get started, in our back pocket is a nice added revenue source. But if we don't control any traffic, if we don't have a way to drive those people, if that opportunity goes away, then we set ourselves up to be a dead Etsy seller. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. So, like I said, we're not just going to sit here and just, say it's all doom and gloom, because it's really not. There is opportunity there. I'm going to actually walk you through what I feel if I was advising a new seller, because I saw we had a few people in the comments here that said, I'm a new seller. What does this mean for me? Hang tight, because we're going to break this down, but it's just a different mind shift. It is. It's if you're just coming into this thing thinking you're just going to sell on Etsy, then you're kind of already not going to probably be able to make it work. And I'm just being completely honest. And I've never said that. We have a program called 123 Pod Fast Track. We didn't call it 123 Etsy, right? Pod, because the idea is to build something that's not just for that one platform, but could be brought to other platforms, or you can build your own platform. So we're going to talk about all of those things. All right. Now, before we do get going, if you are brand new, or even if you're not new and you want to kind of see our philosophy broken down, we did create something which we call the 100K roadmap. If you would like a copy of that, it walks you through how we are doing it. I'm going to cover some of them here today, but if you want a copy of that, I forget how many pages it is, but it's like 15 or 18 or 20 pages, something like that. But it walks you through a little blueprint, a little roadmap on what we have followed and what we're going to continue to follow. If you want a copy of that, just put 100K in the comments, put 100K in the comments, and we'll make sure that we get you a copy of that. All right. So let's kind of dive in here. All right. I've got some notes. Lots of notes, actually, because I wanted to stay on track here. So the first thing I want to bring up is the recent survey that we did here on this channel has 616 votes. Okay, 616 people voted. All right, and the vote was out of all of those, 388 people said that their sales are down since October 1st, since that little update from the Etsy algorithm update that was done. At least that's what we think. Okay. It could just be sales are down this year in general. Don't know. Okay. But from October 1st to where we are right now, 616 people voted, 388 said that their sales are down. 123 people said that their sales have stayed the same. And then 110 people said just starting, so I don't know. Okay. So really, out of all of this, we're looking at 380, a majority, okay, over 50%, it's over 60% said that 388 people said that sales are down. Okay. So we know that. Okay. We actually got real data here. Okay. And people in the comments have already posted here too. And a majority of you have said your sales are down. Okay. So we get it. All right. So why is this? Why? We can make assumptions and we can say, well, the algorithm update, oh, Etsy just did this whole shift, or, oh, Etsy has more sellers now than ever, so we're competing against each other. There's some other things that has also made us curious. And we've talked about that. There's negative news around Etsy because of, well, their sales technically aren't down, but as far as an investor or as far as being part of the S&P 500, they are, and they were removed from the S&P 500. Okay. So does that mean that sales traffic is going to be down? Not necessarily, but traffic is down. Okay. Now, the other thing is we know this as a fact, there's more competition. So anytime that there's more competition, there's probably going to be less sales to be had unless you're just completely dominating your niche. Okay. Which a lot of people aren't even niche focused. They're focusing on a whole bunch of different niches. Okay. So that's what we know to be true. Okay. We know that there's negative news out there. S&P 500 is one of them. Traffic is down across the board. And we even did it for, looking it up. We have a tool that we use called Uber Suggest that can look at the traffic coming from there. And we also talked about possibly they have pulled back on their spend as far as how much they're advertising, because last year they might have spent more. We're also not looking at the COVID year, the pandemic. If I say that, I might, flag our content, but let's just say the pandemic. You can't compare to that. It's completely different, right? And a lot of people started, even some of the Etsy gurus started during the pandemic. And now all of a sudden they had these big numbers and now they're like, look at this thing is amazing. And then it's like, it's not really, because look at it now. All right. So what is the future of pod? What is the future of print on demand? Now this is also like not just print on demand, but I'm focusing on that because I believe majority of you are. And let me know in the comments, how many of you are print on demand and how many of you are handmade? I would be curious to know that in the comments as well. But I've got 3 areas here that I want to talk about. Okay. There is good news. All right. There is good news. Little side note here though. If you do the work, all right, it is going to require work. It's not hard, okay, but it is going to require work. And like I said earlier, the lazy Etsy seller, all right, the ones that were just like, yeah, this is cool. Just throw up some products, make some sales, jump on the trend. Yay, let's do it, right? Let's just go find the next winning product. Those days are either numbered or they're over, okay, depending. So there's 3 areas I want to talk about. The first one is that your niche is super important. Being specific in a niche is going to make this work. And I'm going to explain why. And I've got some other bullet points here that I want to break down. But having your own niche is super important, not just because of Etsy. We'll talk about that. But when you are on Etsy, being able to sell more products to a customer, you get a customer to come into your store. If you can sell them more, or you can sell them in the future again and have repeat customers, that's how you're going to win at this game on Etsy. Think about it. I bet you if we were able to poll people, and I should probably put up a poll here at some point and ask people, how many of you have multiple products one customer could buy that are in the same niche? Yeah, they could go in there and go, oh, bass fishing shirt for dad. We've got a wedding gift over here for someone else. And then we've got, I don't know, a gardening thing for grandma, right? Like, yeah, but who's going to really do that? You're going to go into a garden shop and you're going to buy garden stuff for either the gardener or for yourself. All right. So that is going to be very, very important. All right. The second thing is finding products that are in demand, not just throwing out their products and going like, I think this is a good product. I think this is a good one. I think this one will do well. No, it's finding the ones and doing the work, doing the research to find the products. Does this mean that Everbee is useless now? No, Everbee is actually more important now than ever because you need to spend the time doing the work. I would much rather launch 10 products than 100 products. Why? Because those 10 products, I can do more research to make sure that those are going to be ones that are getting the search traffic. Remember, if I get search traffic, okay, if there's 3,000 people that I could potentially get their attention versus only having 300, don't you think I'm going to have a better chance of getting more people into my shop? And what happens when I get those people into my shop? If I have products that are related to each other and that they can buy additionally to the one that they bought, I've got a greater chance of increasing my cart value. All of these things that I'm talking about, if you've ever watched Shark Tank, you probably hear them talk a lot about the stuff that we're talking about, right? Getting a customer and then selling that customer more. Okay. So that's what we're talking about. All right. So finding the right products. I talked about Everbee. If you're not yet using Everbee, that's the only tool that we use. It's the only tool I will use right now because I need to do the research to make sure products that we are going to sell, whether it's now or in the future, we need to do the product research. If you guys have not yet used that, I would definitely recommend it. Head on over to brandcreators.com/Everbee and you can try it for free. All right. And then if you do sign up, you'll buy us a cup of coffee and we love our coffee and you'll help support the channel. All right. Little shameless plug there, but it's one that I believe in because I got it installed on my computer and I use it. I don't want to say every day, but I use it very, very often. Okay. Especially if I'm going down the rabbit hole of finding more products so we can add it to our catalog. All right. So brandcreators.com/Everbee. Now, with that being said, all right, moving down the list here, I've got one more that I want to touch on here. And this one's a big one, but this one here is super important. And that is marketing is a must. And on my notes here, I've got it in all caps because I really need to make sure that you're aware of this. It's like the artist that wants to create. A lot of them out there on Etsy. We've even had some here that we've done on this channel. We've done our Etsy shop audits, and they're awesome. We've got a lot of artists. Artists want to create, but they also need to, if they want to sell their stuff, they got to learn how to market. Okay. And if you don't know how to market, it's going to be really hard to get people into your shop to see your stuff. So we have to learn marketing. Now, there's a lot of different areas on the marketing side, but we're going to go through a few of them here today. Okay. Because this is probably the biggest point I want to make today, other than you got to find a niche that has multiple products that you can sell to the same customer. Okay. Why would we want to do this if traffic is down right now? Well, traffic might be down, but it might not be down if you focus specifically in one niche and you can then get one customer in that can buy 3 things versus 1 thing. You got to find less customers that way. Okay. And there are products on Etsy that are doing extremely well, and they will continue to, depending on the season, maybe. Okay. But this also will transition to, well, you know what? What if we want to sell on Amazon? We've got all our products. We've got our brand. We can move stuff over there. We can add it there. All right. Or maybe we want to get crazy and open up our own website, maybe Shopify. Okay. Well, we got our products. We know it's a brand, and then we can start doing other fun stuff, which we're going to talk about, and we can do some real marketing. And what I mean by that is not just stuff that's internal, but external. Okay. We'll talk about that, but marketing is a must. Marketing. And I don't just mean learning marketing, testing marketing. There's a lot of things that we can do, and I'm not going to overwhelm you with everything because I don't think it needs to be that complicated, but you do need to understand the spray and pray approach, no more. Okay. If that is the case, yes, Etsy will be dead to you. Okay. Because it's not going to be the same, right? Think about using Etsy as an easy way to build a website. And you can also tap into their traffic in some of their tools. Just think about it like that. And then eventually, if you want to upgrade your skill set and you want to go ahead and build out a Shopify store and start getting your own traffic on top of the Etsy thing, great. That's where you'll move. But you need to understand that Etsy is still a great platform because you can set this thing up in a matter of an hour or 2, and you can be off to the races as long as you have the plan that is going to find a niche that has multiple products that a customer can buy that you can then drive traffic to. Okay. And again, that's all in our 100K roadmap. If you want a copy of that, just put 100K in the comments and we'll send you a copy. So I'm going to leave it right there. I've got other points here on the marketing side. I've actually got 4 that I'm going to be covering here. But Chris, I'm going to take a little bit of a break there. And is there anything you wanted to highlight, anything you wanted to add to what I just kind of spewed out there?
So first of all, you were channeling some Bruce Willis from the greatest Christmas movie of all time, right? Come over to Etsy. We'll get together. We'll sell some stuff. We'll have a few laughs, right? And I think that was the attitude, especially coming out of 2020. And I think that's also a big portion of the reason that Etsy ended up in the S&P 500 to begin with, was people saw the numbers they had in early 2020. It made them eligible at that point to be in the S&P 500. And nobody stopped to think, Scott, maybe when people aren't locked at home, that e-commerce will change a little bit, right? And that's something we have to pay attention to. It's not that demand has changed that much in the Etsy ecosystem. And if we actually look at the year-over-year numbers, even though gross sales are down, they're doing a good job of acquiring new customers. They're doing a good job of keeping and holding the existing customers that they have. They're just not seeing that 10, 20, 30% growth. And the place that they're still trying to figure out is getting people, instead of buying once or twice a year, to buy 3, 4, or 5 times a year. And that's the nut that Amazon has really cracked over the years. Scott, you are old enough, no offense, to remember a time when Amazon was not a thing. And you may even remember the first thing you bought on Amazon. I know I do. And I know that it was not a common thing to just be like, oh, I need something in 2 days. Let me go over to Amazon and figure it out. But it's become part of the buying behavior. And where Etsy is right now is somewhere between your Temus and Sheins in terms of customer retention and your Amazons. The first place people go when they're looking for information online, even in 2024, is Google. The first place people go when they need to buy something online is Amazon. Amazon dominates that side of the search. It's not something Etsy has been able to do, and it's what they're trying to do with gift mode, which seems to be working at least to some extent. People are thinking more of Etsy as a place to go to get unique things, which was the reason that Etsy made that pivot at the beginning of the year. It's not that they think they're going to be the next Amazon, because they won't be. That's not their business model, but they do have to try to figure out a niche or a niche or a nicho for our Spanish speaking friends in the chat. If they can do that, then they can shore up that base. So yes, are they out of the S&P 500? Yeah, and we had a whole conversation about that, right? Does that mean anything? Not really. But what does it mean as Etsy grows and matures? It means the same thing as it means on any other platform. If we're talking about something like YouTube, Scott, if you and I started a YouTube channel in 2009, we could make a video about Etsy. We could make a video about cars. We could make a video about chopping grass. We could make a video about fixing your plumbing, which is a story I have to tell you about the genius that plumbed my kitchen sink after we get off. You'll enjoy this. For those of you guys who don't know, Scott has a construction background, and he and I both enjoy doing projects around the house and going, huh? Who thought this was a good idea?
What happened?
So you'll enjoy that story. But I think now if you start a YouTube channel, you have to have a niche. The same thing applies on Etsy. If you are not serving a customer, and Scott, this was an interesting comment we got the other day, and I want your thoughts on this. So you and I talk about not using the spray and pray approach, but finding and identifying a single customer type that you can target through a niche. The argument that we got back was that the people who are saying use spray and pray are still advocating to find a bunch of things you can sell to that same person, right? So if you can get that customer, then you can sell them a bunch of different things. If that's the method with spray and pray that people are using, do you think that that is still enough? So instead of selling to a customer in a niche, you're selling to that customer avatar and thinking about all of the things that they're interested in. If that's the approach people are taking outside of the niche-based approach you and I are talking about, is that a valid strategy? I'm curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. I do not think that is a great strategy. I want you to just imagine that you are sitting down and you are coming up with a business that you want to start locally. Okay. You want to start this thing locally in your town. And you're like, I am going to launch a store for women that are over 50. They could be into fitness. They could be into gardening. They could be. Would you do that? I personally don't know anyone in my area that I'm going to that store over there because it's an over 50 women's store. Now, if it was a over, or not even, if it was a plus size woman's store, I get that, right? We're catering to a demographic, but we're also saying, okay, but we're targeting them because they want plus sizes. Right. And that's what we're going to specialize in. So we went into a niche, women, right? And then we said plus size, we niched down a little bit. Now we're going to tailor everything to them. Okay. So that would be a better strategy. But to say, oh, well, that woman, she might have grandkids. So we'll put some grandkids gifts in here. And she might be into golfing, might be into pickleball. But she might also be into cooking. Right. So that avatar does tend to like to, do these different activities. So we'll make products for all these different activities. It doesn't make sense to me. I want to know that if someone came in and I was selling to plus size or tall men, right? You're a thin and tall or whatever, right? Like, it's like, okay, cool. You're going to make, suit jackets that are going to be longer. You're going to make pants that are going to be longer. And you're going to, all of this stuff, right? Well, if that person came in, you're probably going to sell them another product next time and the next time and the next time, right? Or maybe someone's going to buy a gift for that person who's extra tall, right? So then you're like, oh, now I'm going to, Chris, I got to say thin and tall. I think it's big and tall. I think that's what it's called. Isn't that what it is?
Yeah. I was going to pop back in and say Scott over here making up niches, but there is thin and tall people, right? And so that's a good example of a niche. Now, is it as big of a niche as a plus size women's store or a big and tall store? Probably not, because you're talking about, big this way and tall this way. So you're getting kind of two of those groups in. But I think the example you started with is a great example. So the over 50 women's store versus the menopause care store, right? If you're starting to deal with menopause symptoms, and it's weird for two dudes to have a conversation about this, let's just acknowledge that, right? If you're starting to experience the symptoms of menopause, or you're in menopause, you're going to go to that store. Just because you're an over 50 woman, you're like, I don't know, maybe they have something that'll help me with my hot flashes. Maybe they'll have something. Maybe the lady that works there can explain to me what the heck is going on right now. Maybe they'll have some advice. If you just go to an over 50 women's store, you have no idea what they're going to have in there. And you would not say, I love being an over 50 woman. And you wouldn't be like, okay, let's sell 50 plus women's coffee. Like, you'd still have to find the thing that they are interested in, because it's not typically a way, especially in that example, not a lot of people identify with their age, right? on that side of the gender spectrum, specifically, right? And so if we're thinking about this, the niche-based approach works the best. And I think, Scott, I did throw up a poll when you were talking about it. 86% of the people who are on with us right now said they do have more than one product that the same customer would buy. 8% said they don't, and 5% said that they don't know. And I think that's really interesting to me, because if you don't know, if you know that you don't, then that's the immediate thing. If you don't know whether you do or not, then you immediately, right now, like as soon as we get off here, go over to your shop and think through this project or this process logically. If you look through all of your things and there's not something that the same fishing person or menopause suffering woman would purchase from you, then we need to take a step back. If you don't, then you already know what your homework is, right? Like, look at the things that are selling and start to pick that niche.
I wanted to say though, Chris, on your poll, that's a poll here with the audience that has come back and watched a lot of our lives. So I want to applaud you, because you've probably been paying attention and probably already did your homework. So congrats to you, because if we polled just a random Etsy seller audience in that community, it would probably be drastically different. So I think it's great, because our whole point in doing these live streams is to share with you our knowledge from building multiple e-commerce brands, not just on Etsy, and bringing that to you. So this way here, you're at least aware of it, and you can hopefully learn something from what we've done over the years. Not saying we're better than anyone, because trust me, we've made plenty of mistakes. But just by you saying that makes me happy, because it sounds like you are paying attention and you're also taking action, which is always great in my eyes. So that was good.
Then the niche-based approach, and you and I talk about this all the time, is the thing that makes the most sense, especially moving forward. We had a couple comments that I wanted to share. Chrissy said, I'm very niche and I find it really helps. I had a 3-item order yesterday and a 2-item order yesterday, right?
Good job.
This is the thing. So even if traffic, let's say traffic, Scott, is down between 50 and 70%, which seems to be, everybody that's down is giving us a number like smack in the middle of that range. Like 67 to 72 is the average, right? But if traffic is down, and we're going from an average of 1 product per sale to 3 products per sale or 2 products per sale, then we can absorb some of that traffic decrease, at least in the short term, and still make the same amount, if not a little bit more, because we can occasionally save on shipping, or we know that they're going to come back and buy from us again and again. And Ginger said the same thing. She said, in the grand scheme of things, my views are down, but my sales are up because of my sales to return clients. God bless them. And I think that's the point you and I are trying to make over and over again, week in and week out here, is like, if you're using the niche-based approach, it makes you a lot more resilient to any of these kinds of changes. So having that niche, like you said, Scott, super important. But just because we're in a niche doesn't mean that we have products people are looking for. We have to make sure that we have that demand. And if we have those two things, then we can set that foundation and we can focus on the marketing. Where does the marketing come in? Well, somebody like who we just shared here, Chrissy, who said, I have two product sale and a 3 product sale yesterday. Great. If we get those people on an email list, we can start pulling that trigger over and over again and executing those sales on a daily and weekly basis to make up for some of the drop in traffic, whether we're doing that with Etsy, we're doing that on Shopify, WooCommerce, Wix, wherever we're building that external presence. But we have to master the marketing. To me, and I want your opinion on this, the reason those are in that order is because that's the order of operations for this. If we don't have a niche, we can't find high demand products. We can, but it's meaningless, right? If we find those high demand, in demand products, and we have that niche, then we can focus on learning some of the basic marketing skills. We don't have to go get a degree. That's something we hear all the time, right? Scott, how many degrees do you have in marketing?
I have 0 degrees and I've never went to college. So there's that too.
I think you have a couple degrees from the School of Hard Knocks, but not anything from an official
Thank you,
university,
Chris.
right? The way that you have figured this out is a lot of trial and error, and it doesn't have to be rocket science, right? You've learned at the end of the day that there's a lot of different ways to do this, right? But quite honestly, some of the easiest ways are some of the best ways, and that's what we talk about here all the time, right? Starting with that email list, being able to own that customer data, and then being able to type a few things in English, Spanish, Portuguese, whatever your flavor of choice is, right? Just a few sentences and sending that off to those people is a great way to start that foundation. We don't have to go to a 4-year college. We don't have to spend $1 billion to figure this out. Learn from the lessons that you and I have learned from and go from there. So if you aren't using that niche-based approach, if you're not focused on the in-demand stuff, you can't do the rest of this. And if you do those two things, then start figuring out the marketing side, because that's a skill that even if Etsy did go away tomorrow, and it's not gonna, that's a skill that will transfer to any other platform and increase everything else that you're doing, even if you don't want to take it outside of Etsy.
Yeah, for sure. And once again, if you guys are just tuning in, or if you haven't requested it, if you guys want a copy of our 100K roadmap, that's basically everything we're talking about as far as choosing a niche, multiple products, getting everything launched, building a brand. Like, that's what we're talking about. If you would like that, it's one that we put together from years of doing e-commerce, but also now tailoring it to the Etsy seller, because that's what my wife had started. That's how this whole thing became something that we were talking about, because we started doing it now, and it's been 3 years. If you'd like a copy of that, just put 100K in the comments and we will get you that guide. All right. 100K in the comments and we'll send it to you. All right, cool. So let's keep rolling on here. We've got a bunch to cover still. Like I said, we're not going to leave you empty-handed as far as like not talking about like what we need to do, but let's really dig in to the marketing side. I want to highlight the one thing that I said earlier, though, just in case maybe you missed it, or maybe you're just tuning in. I want you to imagine that you want to start an e-commerce business, okay? Not just an Etsy business. You want to start an e-commerce business, and you want to build a website, and you want to get traffic, and you want to be able to collect money, and you want to be able to, have customers see your like all that stuff. Just imagine that you can do all that by setting up an Etsy shop. So stop thinking about like all of the negative stuff and think about, this is a fast way to get your e-commerce business up and running. And you also get to tap into customers that they have and traffic that they have. Even though it might be down, you still get to tap into this, and it makes it really, really easy to get started. That's why I still recommend anyone that wants to start an e-commerce business, we want to use a platform that is already basically built. And then from there, we just plug in. But a little side note here is, we are thinking ahead that we are building this thing to have products that serve an audience, that serve a niche, and we can have repeat buyers and buyers that are going to want to come back, or that are going to want to buy more at the time of order. That's e-commerce. Like, that's what people want. That's what you hear on Shark Tank all the time. They want to hear multiple products or multiple sales, or how are you acquiring a customer? How much does it cost you to acquire a customer? Why do they want to know that? Because they know the money is made on the back end, okay, of selling multiple products. So think about Etsy as a way for you to build a website, get traffic and everything within, a day. Right? You can literally start this thing. They even have Etsy ads built in. I know people are, Etsy ads. Forget about it for a second. And listen, I sound like a true New Yorker. Forget about it, right, Chris? Here I am going into my New Yorker again. But no, you got to think to yourself, this is an opportunity for you to be able to get things set up, but you have to think of yourself as a brand, as you're serving a niche. All right. So with all that being said, I highlighted that. I really highlighted that one. I wanted to make sure that I did. So let's talk marketing here. What do we mean about marketing? I've got 4 areas I want to cover. Number 1, optimization. Okay. People don't look at optimization as marketing, but it is, because if you can optimize, okay, and there's 2 different things that we're talking about optimizing for, by the way. All right. We're optimizing for SEO a lot of times, but we're forgetting about the conversion aspect. And I said this the other day. If you had 300 visitors last year for a day and you have 100 visitors this year, you're still getting traffic. But let's say that you're converting at 1%. Okay. So some really easy math. You would have 3 sales with 300 views or visits. And with 100 at that 1%, you would only have 1. Okay. Simple math. But what if we were able to increase that to 2%? Well, we went from 1 sale to 2 sales with the same 100 visits. If we get it to 3%, we now get it 3 sales for the same 100. Now we're making as much but less traffic as we did the year before. So there are things that we can still control. And this is marketing, by the way, because when you're learning about your images are going to play a huge role. I mean, that could take you from a 1 to a 3. Okay, because it's explaining it better, it shows it off better, it answers questions in the images, like all of those things. And there's a laundry list of different things that we can do. Okay, but this is why we are so focused and obsessed with increasing conversions. And by the way, we actually put together what we call now our conversion maximizer playbook, where we took 25 high converting listings over 3%, and we just plowed through them to kind of see, like, what are they doing? What are they doing that we might not be doing? And trying to compare and looking at what is working for them. And we actually put it into a really nice looking user-friendly guide. Now, it wasn't user-friendly. We were just kind of doing this off the cuff. We actually paid a designer to put it into a really easy to go through and really also help you compare and create a checklist for your own shop to better it. If you'd like a copy of that, there is a cost associated. It's $10. Like I said, we paid a designer to basically make it look nice and also make it user-friendly. If you'd like a copy of that, okay, if you'd like to grab a copy, in the comments, just put conversions. All right, just put conversions in the comments and we'll make sure that we get you a link to that. All right, just put conversions in there and we'll send you a link to that. All right, but this is extremely important. Just think about that. Yeah. Oh, last year I had 300 visits a day. Now I only have 100. Okay. But what are you converting at? What were you converting at last year? What are you converting at this year? Can we improve that? And my guess is we can always improve conversions. Always. There's always something, right? Whether it's getting more reviews, right? Maybe it's taking a great review and putting it in one of your image slots, right? It's getting that person that's, I don't know if I want to buy this, to where they're like, oh yeah, this definitely makes sense because all my questions are answered. I trust this seller. Okay. So to me, that's part of marketing that is within Etsy, but also guess what? If you're doing this on Amazon, same rules apply, right? If you're doing this on your own website, guess what? Same rules apply. Everything still applies. That's why I say marketing is pretty much universal, but you have to understand it. Conversions are a big one. Number 2, traffic. Internal traffic. So we have SEO, which we talked about. So yes, you want to make sure that you are choosing the right keywords. You want to making sure that you fill out your description well. You want to make sure you have great images, which we talked about. You want to make sure that you have your reviews that are coming in, that are there, that are allowing people to see that you're a 5-star seller. You're getting your star seller badge, right? All of those things help with the SEO. Okay. Not just the star seller badge, but that's going to help you get higher conversions. If we get higher conversions, that shows the algorithm that we are converting higher. So let's push them up higher because we can make more money on this listing. That's how Etsy looks at it. So SEO is something that we can focus on. Okay. The other thing is Etsy ads. And this is something I don't hear a lot of people talking about, but that's marketing. Spending money on ads is marketing. Okay. And then you're going to say, okay, well, I turned them on and they didn't work for me. Well, why didn't they work for you? Did you turn them on and you got a bunch of clicks, but you didn't convert? Now we're back to conversions, right? See how it goes? That's marketing. If we're going to drive traffic to a listing, you better make sure that your listing is as optimized for conversions as it can be, right? But Etsy gives us the ability to turn on ads. So let's turn them on. If you're getting a lot of clicks, but no sales, you might say, okay, it's converting or it's not converting, but let's go ahead and drill into the keywords that are being clicked on that are driving people. Are they relevant? Are they too broad? That's marketing. You see, in the beginning, I talked about the lazy Etsy seller. This means that it's going to take work. You got to go through and you got to look through data. You got to take the time. So there's still opportunity there if you want to do the work. All right. So that's number 2, traffic, internal traffic. The third one I want to talk about for marketing is traffic, but also external traffic. Okay. And this is one that a lot of people don't talk about either. And that's email. Number 1, email marketing. And we can get into, which we have before, like how do you build your list and all that stuff. And I've got a resource I can give you guys for that. But there's email, building your email list. Okay. And there's a bunch of different ways that we can do this. That's going to allow you to do what? Send your own traffic to your Etsy listings. And guess what? Some people say, well, Etsy doesn't really want you to do that. That's crap. They do want you to do it. And I'll tell you why. They created something called the share and save link. That's your link that you get to track. Why did they create that? Because they're going to reward you for sending your own traffic. What they don't want you to do is just randomly email your customers. That's what they don't want. They want you to get permission. Okay. And that's all you have to do. So if you offer someone a 20% discount to join your VIP list, they have to sign up. You're getting their permission. And when you're able to send emails, now you're controlling traffic. That's marketing. Okay. Again, like I said, it requires work. If you don't want to do this type of stuff, it's going to be extremely hard for you to make it on just the spray and pray approach. Okay. Let's just throw some products up there. It sounds like fun. The gurus are saying you can just sell mugs and t-shirts. No, I'm telling you here, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I told you the guys that in the beginning. Is there an opportunity there? Yes, but you got to do the work. Okay. So that's the email side of things. Now, Facebook ads is another external traffic, but I would never do this. Pay attention to this. I would never send Facebook ad traffic over to my listing without one important step. I would put a page in front of my shop before they could get there that would offer them a discount. And to get the discount, they have to put their name and email address in. And then as soon as they do that, guess what? They go over to my Etsy listing. Why is that so important? Because if I'm paying Facebook or Meta, however you want to call it these days, if I want to drive traffic there, I don't want one shot of making the sale because people get busy. They might click over there and then go, oh crap, I'm in the shopping line here and I got to check out. I can't do this. I'll go back there later, and then they never come. If I got them on my email list, I know they're interested and I'm able to then follow up with them using email marketing. Okay. So if you're going to run Facebook ads, which I'm a fan of, by the way, but it does require learning some basic Facebook ad stuff and how to market after the person clicks. All right. So it's totally possible. And guess what? If you think it's going to be easier over starting your own Shopify store, I hear people go, I'm leaving Etsy and I'm going to go start my own Shopify store. How are you going to get traffic? That's my question to you. You're going to have to learn Facebook ads. You're going to have to learn maybe Google ads. You got to learn something about traffic. How are you going to get traffic? Got to get it somewhere. Right. So that's your external traffic. If you guys need any help with email, by the way, we have a free playbook. It's our email marketing playbook. Which is catered to Etsy sellers. If you want a copy of that, just put email in the comments. Okay. Just put email in the comments and we'll send you a copy of that. That one there is pretty robust, actually. I think it's like 60, 70 pages. It's pretty long, but there's a lot of meat in there. So if you want a copy of that, check it out. Okay. The fourth thing that I want to talk about is, and part of marketing is creating more products strategically that can be bundled and cross-sold. So Etsy just rolled out another cool little feature to help you with marketing. Okay. Because now what you can do is create 3 products. Let's say your one product will say, oh, there's these other 2 products that can be bundled together. And if you do, maybe you get a discount. Now, let's say that someone comes in from one of those other products. You can turn it on to then show the other product. So now technically, if we have traffic coming in from one product, we also can get traffic to 2 other products. And we can also increase the value of our cart. Marketing. This is marketing. It's called upsells and cross sells. That's what it's about. Okay. And they're giving us that opportunity. If you want to do this with your own Shopify store, you can do it. But guess what? You're going to need a plugin. You got to basically get that hooked in. Then from there, you got to learn how to use it. It's the same thing. It's just now we're able to do it within Etsy. So I'm going to leave it at that because we can talk for days on marketing. But that's what I wanted to share with you guys because we have to understand that marketing is something we have to learn and we have to get good at. And it's totally doable. And if you're here on this channel, it's a good place to be because Chris and I have done this, and Chris is still running millions of dollars for e-commerce brands right now. So you're in a good place. So the bottom line, I'm going to finish it here. And then Chris, I'm going to get your thoughts. Is the bottom line is the good old days of being the lazy Etsy seller. Those are numbered or over, depending on when you're watching this. So I'm going to leave you there. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments because we'll be answering them here shortly. So Chris, you got anything you want to add to that?
Other than we got the whole chat, seeing the new version of a Salt and Pepper song about marketing. Let's talk about marketing. I think the biggest thing people need to understand is before you get into this, and every time, Scott, you and I bring this up, people will go, but I don't want to do marketing. I get it. No one, with the exception, I think, of maybe you and I, who love it because we see the return that we get from it. I think you and I are very similar in that when we do something and see an immediate result, that's what lights us up. Versus the artistic side of things. I'm not a very artistic person, right? And so the design side of things on Etsy, or product creation for me, naming a product, Scott, you can vouch for this. That is my least favorite part of the process. My favorite part of the process is marketing. And I get that there are people on the other side of this. But even though I hate naming and design, I still have to understand at least the basics of how it works. And if you're on the opposite side of this, you do need to think about the basics of that 9-letter word that no one wants to hear if they're on the artistic side of the world, right? If you're looking at this as a way to express your art or as a way to express your design capabilities, I get it. It's not something that excites you, but you do still have to understand the basics. And I think the 4 things you were just talking about really are the 4 most important things for everybody to understand. If you don't understand anything other than your conversion rate and what can impact your conversion rate, that gets you 60% of the way there, right? If you want to just be on Etsy, you want to exist on Etsy, and you want to get more out of what you're doing, understanding how to optimize your listings. And I'm not talking about SEO optimization. I'm talking about conversion optimization, Scott. And this is why you and I put together the Conversion Maximizer Guide, right? If you guys want a copy of that, just drop conversions down below. We looked at some of the highest converting listings over a long period of time on Etsy, analyzed what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, and gave you a way to apply those lessons to your existing listings. But if you want to learn nothing else about marketing, starting there will have an outsized benefit on everything else that you do. Why? Well, like I just said, if you convert higher, you sell more with the same traffic. And so as traffic ebbs and flows, you're still going to be selling more than you would otherwise. The nice side benefit of that is Etsy's search algorithm is still extremely dependent on conversions as a signal. So if we convert higher than our competitor, even if our SEO isn't perfect and we haven't keyword optimized everything, we're still headed in the right direction. And we can still outrank our competition without having to learn all of the ins and outs of Etsy SEO. I think the other thing that you and I talk about all the time that a lot of people miss out on, Scott, is number 2 here, which is the Etsy ads side of this, right? We talked about SEO and ads. People get turned off by ads. And there's a conversation going on that you don't have complete control of Etsy ads. And while I would love to have granular keyword control, and in fact, we worked with a software team, Scott, over on the Amazon side to come out with one of the first Amazon pay-per-click tools, because we didn't like that we couldn't do some day splitting and, some of the more advanced pay-per-click stuff and have exact control over keywords. And if it hits this return on ad spend, then ramp the budget up automatically. Etsy doesn't work like that. And I think I understand that a lot of people want some more granular control. And a lot of people get turned off by the fact that Etsy leaves things in beta forever. Like, I don't know, turning off keywords that don't work, right? But where it is right now, it does work with a little bit of maintenance. And if we're ignoring that because it's not ideal or it's not ideal for us, we're missing out on a huge source of not just traffic, but sales as well. Additionally, it helps us optimize everything on the listing because we can get that traffic faster. I know we've talked about Etsy ads to death, but I think if you're not using them because it's not the exact system you want, you're missing out. I hate Etsy ads because I can't do any of the things that I would want to do. If I have a product that's doing really well, I want to assign a budget just to that product. Etsy doesn't let me do that. Does it mean I don't use Etsy ads? No. Do they have improvements? Yes. But if we're not using the tools that are available to us right now, we're missing out. And I think you've given the example in the past, Scott. Can you build a roof with a nail, like a bucket of nails and a hammer? Yes. Would it go a heck of a lot faster with a nail gun? Also, yes. Right? So like, if we think about it a little bit, if we can use that simple approach, that simple mindset, can you cut an onion with a razor blade? Also, yes. Is it easier with a knife and a cutting board? Yes. Right. And so if we're thinking about using the tools that we have available, even if it's not a perfect chef's knife for our hand, it's still going to be better than the razor blade. And so if we can start to use what's available to us, both for the internal things like SEO and Etsy ads, and the external things like potentially running some Facebook ads to build that email list and having that email list, then we're in a much better place. And then on top of that, if we can start to create more products to bundle and cross sell, that's not going to be a panacea. That's not going to be the end all be all, but it is an additional way to get more with less. Just like doing the conversion optimization gets us more sales from the same amount of traffic, those bundles and cross sell opportunities get us more sales from the same amount of traffic. And the side benefit is they have a nice little bonus of potentially being a conversion booster. And I think to your point, Scott, the bottom line is you can't be a lazy Etsy seller. We're not calling anybody lazy. We know that you guys are working, but the spray and pray approach, that is done, right? Like Etsy has very explicitly said, they've been saying since they came out with, I think it was their Q3 call last year when they started announcing some of the more brand focused stuff. I know we did a live at the end of last year talking about all of those things. Every time Etsy has said something this year, they're doubling and tripling down in the brand direction, in the niche store direction. Why? Because what Etsy's real goal is to be a place where people can come and buy again and again from sellers that they know and love and get really unique things. You're not going to get that from an everything for everybody store. Yes, you'll find 500 t-shirts at the boardwalk with your name on them. Even if you have a funny spelling, maybe you can find a t-shirt with Christopher with a KR instead of a CH, right? Cool. What else they got for you? Maybe you get a shot glass and then you never go in that store ever again. That's not the approach Etsy wants moving forward because it doesn't lead to long-term customers. It leads to one-time transactions. And that's what they're trying to avoid. They don't want to fall into that same customer acquisition trap as Temu and Shein have.
Yeah. All right, cool. So we got a lot of comments here. We got over 280 people on with us here live, which is awesome. I want to thank you guys, but we're not done. We've got other areas that we want to cover here. Actually, I want you guys to definitely stick around for this one. Chris is going to do a recap here quick of this, but we've got an actual listing that we're going to share with you that's actually in our conversion maximizer playbook. And it had 7,160 Etsy sales and is converting over 5%. So what we're going to do is we're going to walk through that one. So I want you to stick around for that. You might learn something just from that you can maybe add to your listing and test yourself to try to increase your conversions. All right. And we're also going to talk a little bit about why adding more Etsy products could be hurting your sales. So we're going to talk about those too. But Chris, before we do, and I was going to mention this off air, I want you to try to do this in like 10 minutes or less on the recap. And a lot of times people they'll come here and they'll see that this thing's almost an hour long and they won't want to sit through it, or they don't have time to sit through it. So we always try to do a very condensed recap. And generally Chris is going to do that. So that's what we're going to do now, Chris. We have a bunch of questions too. Also, I wanted to, and maybe Chris, you can find the link to throw up on the screen, but some of you may or may not want this, but I saw a few people in there that were a little frustrated with their shop. If you want to potentially have us do an Etsy shop audit, we are accepting people into our list because we have a running list of people that have submitted their shops to be in our Etsy shop audits. If you would like us to potentially do an audit on your shop, you would need to be present, and you would also need to be willing to have us share it here on YouTube, because that's what we do here. We have about 32 that we've done so far, and we're doing one a week right now. But if you would like to be part of that, just go to brandcreators.com / audit. And if you go to that, should be on the screen, go there, fill out a little bit of information, and then we may reach out to you and select your shop to be on the show. All right. So with that all being said, Chris, I'm going to go ahead and tee it up here for you, if you don't mind. And yeah, if you can give us a quick recap, let's do it. All right. So we just did a 1-hour live stream talking about the death of Etsy and the future of print on demand. There is a dark side. And what I want to do here is have Chris Schaefer actually try to distill this down in 10 minutes or less. So this way here, you can get, well, the information that is going to be needed for you to be able to succeed on Etsy. Because I will tell you in advance, yes, there's a ton of opportunity left if you're willing to do the work. And with that being said, Chris, could you go ahead and can you do a quick little recap here and let people know what it means and what they can do moving forward if they want to succeed on Etsy?
I think I can do this in 10 minutes or less, Scott. Let's figure this out. So Etsy isn't what it was in 2020. I think we can all acknowledge that. But then again, nothing is what it was in 2020, right? Not everybody's stuck at home. Not everybody has to buy everything online. And that's the first thing that we need to acknowledge. Etsy is changing, but everything changes all the time. Scott, you and I have talked about Google has changed in the last 10 years. YouTube has changed in the last 10 years. Amazon has changed in the last 10 years. Shopify has changed a heck of a lot in the last 10 years, but it doesn't mean that just because things are changing, that there's not still an opportunity. And especially when we're talking about something like Etsy, it's a great platform to start on because it minimizes the things that we have to do. All we have to do are try to figure out who we can serve in terms of a niche and the products that they're interested in. If we can do that, they take care of the hosting, they take care of the web pages, they take care of all of those kinds of things. So are we going to be leaving the platform? Are we suggesting that people don't start or keep their shop on Etsy? Absolutely not. But things are going to change and things are going to continue to change. I think we ran on this channel a sales survey since the October 1st update. We got 616 votes from sellers. 388 said their sales are down. 123 said they're about flat, and 110 are just getting started, so they don't have some of that year-over-year data, right? So what does this mean? Well, sales are down. Is it because there's no traffic coming to Etsy? Probably not, right? The traffic has changed. A big portion of that is they're not running as many ads as they typically do in October. I expect that to change here shortly. But even if it stayed this way, does that mean that because traffic is down and that Etsy's out of the S&P 500, which we did a whole different video on, that it's not an opportunity? The answer is no, right? Traffic is down and there is more competition than there was in 2020. So if you're trying to get started on Etsy or you're trying to pivot your Etsy store, what do you need to do? And I think there's three big things that you need to focus on. What is the future for people, especially on the print on demand side of the world? The good news is it boils down to essentially just those three things. The first thing, and it's something if you've come to this channel, you hear us talk about again and again, having your niche is not just super important. It is the number one thing, period, hands down, that you need to do to understand how you can set your foundation for the future. If you don't have one type of customer that you are serving in your shop, you are losing out and you will continue to lose out. Etsy has said for well over a year now, and they've shown us with the changes that they are making, that they will be favoring niche style stores, right? Stores who serve something that a customer will know to expect when they come in. If you have a bass fishing store, you start selling groceries in there, it gets really weird for the bass fishermen who have come there again and again. We need to drill down and focus on that one niche. Once we have that niche, then we can figure out what to sell them. A lot of people start this at the product, at the demand side of this. If you're doing that, you are making a huge mistake, especially moving forward. If you look at your niche will tell you the products that they are interested in, right? So that's thing number two. Find those high demand products, not just any high demand product, but the high demand product inside of your niche. Who is the customer that you serve? What are the things that they are looking to purchase? The third thing, and I think it's really important for everybody to understand in the Etsy ecosystem, we cannot just list products anymore moving forward. We are going to have to focus on that 9-letter word that no one in the Etsy community wants to hear, which is marketing, right? Marketing moving forward at the end of 2024, 2025, and beyond is an absolute must. Now, does this mean we have to go to college, get a degree in marketing, try to figure out, spend $1 billion, do all of those kinds of things? Absolutely not. We do have to master a few basic concepts. And I think the other thing that people miss out on, Scott, when they say, oh, I'm going to leave Etsy. is I'm just going to build a Shopify store, right? And they don't realize they still have to learn the marketing side of this. So if we're starting an Etsy shop or we're trying to optimize or continue to grow our Etsy shop, we should be treating it like an e-commerce website, like a standalone website, something we might build on Shopify. Why? Because it lets us start to learn those skills with a much lower barrier to entry. And then when we do eventually transition to having more than one channel, right? We have our Etsy shop, we then build a Shopify store maybe. We already have those skills in place. If we had a Shopify store already, we weren't driving traffic or doing any marketing, wouldn't be expecting sales. And we should expect the same thing to happen in the Etsy ecosystem. It's not to say that we're 100% dependent on that, but we have to build the foundation to understand what we need to do to drive our traffic and serve our niche moving forward. So let's take a step back for a minute and talk a little bit about thing number 3 there, marketing being a must. Let's talk about marketing. What are the things we need to learn? And it really comes down to 4 basic concepts. To me, if you don't want to learn anything else about marketing, especially in the Etsy ecosystem, you should spend all of your extra time, energy, and effort understanding how to optimize your listings. And I'm not talking about optimizing for search and tweaking your keywords. I'm talking about optimizing for conversions, optimizing that listing for sales. Why? Well, 1, everybody wants more sales. That kind of makes basic sense. But 2, if we think about the ebbs and flows of traffic, especially inside of something like Etsy, where it seems to be really volatile right now, even if we're dealing with less traffic, let's say traffic fell by 50%. If we're able to double our conversion rate, which is extremely possible for a lot of different Etsy sellers, we've seen it happen, especially after they do a little bit of research into what their problem is in terms of conversion, then we end up with the same number of sales. And if that traffic comes back, then we end up with double the amount of sales. And that traffic will come back when Etsy starts spending money on ads again. They've changed some of their habits around that. We will start to see traffic increase here again over the next few weeks. So if we can focus on the optimization for conversions, then we get more with less. And when there's more, we get even more. The nice side benefit of that is Etsy's algorithm is extremely passionate about listings that convert well. They want to serve up a listing to somebody that they know is going to lead to their purchase. If we can outconvert our competitors, not only do we sell more, but Etsy will then drive us more traffic, which means we then sell even more. It's a beautiful flywheel. So if we're not going to learn anything else about marketing, we need to spend the time, energy, and effort to focus on optimizing for conversions. If that's something you're struggling with inside of your Etsy shop, drop conversions in the comments below, and we'll send you over a link to our conversion maximizer guide. What Scott and I did is we broke down a whole bunch of the top converting Etsy listings, not just in terms of conversion rate, but also in terms of sales over time. So they had an extremely high conversion rate over a long period of time. And we broke down exactly what they're doing and then gave you a way to apply those lessons to your listings. It does cost a couple dollars because we had a fancy graphic designer put it together. Scott and I don't really have that skill set. So we did that for you. It's available. All you have to do is drop conversions in the comments down below. Once you've mastered those conversions, then we can think about the other few areas of marketing that I think are important for Etsy sellers. Thing number 2 here would be mastering all of the internal traffic. And this to me comes after the optimization for conversion. So understanding some of the tweaks that we can make to SEO, maybe rewriting our title or making sure that we have a better description. Some of that is going to be part of that conversion optimization process, but it also has an effect on how much traffic we're getting from the internal things like SEO inside of Etsy. So once we've optimized that as much as we can, then we can come back and start to focus on some of the SEO things, figuring out a better way to write that listing. To be here would be understanding and utilizing Etsy ads. I understand Etsy ads are not everybody's cup of tea. Maybe they don't have enough tools, or maybe they don't have enough transparency, or maybe you got burned with it in the past. But if you're not using this, you're missing out on a huge source of traffic. And also more importantly, Scott, like you and I talk about all the time, data and getting data back even faster. So give Etsy ads a shot. If you need any help with Etsy ads, drop ads in the comments down below. We'll send you our free guide for that. It'll walk you through exactly how to optimize a lot of these different things and get you through some of the biggest sticking points that people have. Thing number 3, when we're talking about marketing, is mastering external traffic. This is the treating our Etsy shop like an external website, understanding and building an email list, and maybe potentially dabbling with some off-site traffic sources like Facebook ads. Now, I'm not a huge fan of driving Facebook ads to your Etsy shop, but if you already have that email list under your belt, driving ads to that list and building your email list with something like Facebook ads is an extremely powerful and underrated strategy and a good place to spend that marketing budget. The other upside to that is if you can master it for building the email list, which you can then turn around and get an immediate return from, then you already have that skill set under your belt if you ever do want to drive ads straight to your own website. And if you're building an e-commerce website down the road, that is a skill set you're going to want to have. So you can master that and not have to figure everything out all at once if you're thinking about this through the lens of email. Thing number 4 here would be to utilize all of the new features inside of the Etsy ecosystem, create more products to bundle and to cross-sell. If we're not cross-selling and creating more products that we can sell in a bundle, we're not only missing out on higher average cart values, meaning we sell more to the customers that we're selling to, but we're missing out on a lot of the things that we can get from the repeat customers. So maybe they buy a mug and now they want to come back and get the teacup that goes along with it. The bottom line is the good old days are over for what we refer to as lazy Etsy sellers, people who are just listing and ghosting, posting and ghosting, if you will, and not focusing on treating this like a real business, which is what Etsy's looking for moving forward.
Sweet. Awesome. He did it.
2 seconds over. 2 seconds over. But
yeah, you must have had your little timer going there. Good job. No, it was good. Very, very good. So yeah, that'll be nice because again, if you guys need to go back, rewatch any of this, that'll be a nice little recap for you guys to kind of go through and have as a checklist. Let's go ahead and answer a couple questions. We got a bunch of questions, but I want to answer a couple, and then I wanted to go into and show that example of the conversion listing that is doing really well. That's from the playbook. So let's see here. Let me go ahead and I'm going to pop this one up here. Is it true if we want to sell pod, we have to pay out of our credit card first? I do digital products only, thinking about adding pod, but I'm confused. Yeah. So you would connect this. We use Printify. So you would connect that with your credit card. And then once the order is processed, it is going to pay them to basically ship the order and do all that stuff. And then, yes, it would go on a credit card, and then you would get payment from Etsy that then you would in turn pay the bill. That's typically how we do it. Let's see here. There you go.
Am I allowed to put a card in my photo section of my listing and encourage customers to send me their email address to join my customer list in exchange for a store coupon? So I'm not sure what you mean by card, but one of the ways that you can do this is with a QR code, right? You can also talk about your VIP list. The caveat that Scott and I both put on this all the time is that you want it to be something that's specific to Etsy. So if you're putting a link somewhere, whether it's in your shop description or whether it's in one of the photos on the listing, that it very explicitly says for your next purchase on Etsy, right? Like save 20% when you come back to Etsy. The only thing that Etsy really frowns upon in terms of links is driving people off of Etsy for what they refer to as fee avoidance. So if you're driving somebody to your website to buy on your website so that you don't pay Etsy fees, that's where Etsy gets sketchy about it. So if you're going to include something in your photos or in your shop link, any of those kinds of things, just make sure that it's an Etsy exclusive thing, so that there's no weirdness and it passes what I've referred to in the past as the mom test, right? If your mom was the person at Etsy looking at it, would she be cool with the way that you are going about it? Well, my mom, pretty strict lady, love her to death. But if I was driving people to my website and said, hey, get 20% off on chrisschaefer.com, not my website, don't type that in, don't know who it belongs to, right? But if we were doing that, then she would be like, well, you're clearly trying to avoid fees, Christopher. Right. And I'd probably get Christopher James out of that. Right. I'd get the full middle name treatment. But if I was driving them back to Etsy and she went through, she filled it out and it said, oh yeah, 20% on Etsy. She go, oh, that's cool. Right. That's fine. And if that's what we're doing, we're treating things appropriately. That's fine. So yes, you can do that. QR codes, which is something that Everbee provides through Everbee email. You can do a direct image insertion with them. You can do it there. You can also put it in your shop description, some of those other places. Scott, what would you say is the easiest platform to plug your listings into that's not Etsy? So if you have a bunch of Etsy listings, is there something that you suggest people have as a backup or as a second channel?
Yeah, well, okay. So it comes down to like, what's the easiest? It's going to be an existing platform versus it being your own platform like a Shopify. So if you were going to do that, it would probably be something like Amazon would probably be where they have, if you're using print on demand, you can still do that. It wouldn't be, it would be fulfilled by merchant, not FBA, unless you created some, but then you wouldn't really be able to personalize and things like that. So there is that over there. They also have Amazon Handmade, where then it would have to be handmade. They also have Amazon merch. So you could do that. I have no experience with that side of it. I have a lot of experience with private labeling, but that would be more one that you would more or less plug into. The issue there is you're still going to have issues like you're having here on Etsy. It's just going to happen. So if you're going to ask me my advice, I'd probably say take the time, transfer everything right now from Etsy, because you can do it with Shopify. You can have a plugin that kind of pulls everything over, and then get that over there, and then start learning about building your email list, but also building or driving traffic yourself using something like Facebook ads to bring them over, intercepting with a coupon code, of course. And then from there, figuring that part out. I think you're going to be further ahead than just trying to tap into another platform, my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think moving to Shopify and having your own home base is always a good strategy. And Scott, you and I have used that term for 8 years now, right? Having and building your own home base, it's fine, but it's not the same thing. Shopify is a platform in that they allow you to build things on Shopify. Shopify is not a marketplace, right? So it doesn't mean they're driving traffic for you. That to me is the biggest difference between a platform and a marketplace. Etsy is both. They allow you to use their infrastructure, their software to create listings, and they also drive a lot of traffic. Shopify just allows you to build a website. It's a website builder, right? So it's a platform without the benefit of traffic. If you're not mastering the marketing things that we were talking about, then you can run into some issues just using the field of dreams approach, right? If you build it, they will come side of things. And I think what we were just talking about in terms of getting your listings off, it's very easy to do, especially if you're using something like Vela, VELA. You can go to brandcreators.com/Vela and get a free week trial of that. And if you end up using the paid version of it, I think it does actually end up buying Scott and I a nice little cup of coffee, maybe a new dancing avocado mug, still looking for a worthy replacement now that mine is fading. But it's the tool that we used when we moved your wife's shop off, and it made our life, or my life specifically, because I ended up building most of the website, a heck of a lot easier because it takes everything and you can sync everything back and forth. So if you make changes one places, it makes them other. It's a great little piece of software. Get the free trial, get all your stuff onto Shopify. And then if you decide you want to use it beyond that week, it will take you literally 30 seconds to connect everything the first time, and it will have everything in the Shopify store for you. If you want to use it after that, they do have a paid version that allows you to do that on an ongoing basis. But if you're just trying to get things over there, great way to get started would be brandcreators.com/Vela. When are we going to hear from Etsy on this change? That's my question. It's like crickets while most of their sellers are in panic mode and left in the dark. Not okay. We may have a quick interview with Etsy's CEO next week, I think. But it's one of those things. Halloween joke, y'all. Halloween joke. Not actually happening, at least as far as I'm aware. Scott, you may know something that I don't. But I think this is one of Etsy's biggest problems in my mind right now. They do not communicate, right? Like Etsy sellers love Etsy as a platform. What they don't love is the utter lack of transparency. And I think we made fun of them a little bit in a video recently because they came out and said, we're being more transparent than ever before. And I said something to the effect of, yeah, because when there's no transparency, any transparency at all is better than no transparency. So yes, being more transparent than completely not transparent is a step in the right direction, but it's not far enough. And I think they are trying to make some of those changes. They're just not doing it in a way where they're communicating with sellers in a meaningful way. They lost a great opportunity with Etsy Up to communicate a lot of these changes. They assume that everyone goes into the Etsy forums and reads all of their weird, obscure pinned posts. And if you don't do that and you don't have like a Google News feed or a Feedly set up specifically to track all of the weird things that Etsy is posting on a weekly basis, there's a good chance that you don't see them, which is why you and I get on here every week for an hour or 2 hours and rant about some of the things that are changing. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like they're changing that as quickly as they could be. Who knows? I think it would be just as easy for Etsy to come out and say, hey, we're not spending as much on ads right now. Why don't they do that? They don't do that more than likely because it can affect their stock price, right? They do have some things that they have to consider. And in the short term, that can cause an issue with the stock price, even if they wanted to be transparent with sellers. Do I think specifically the ads thing will change? Yes. And we've talked about that. The day after the election is probably when that will change. So like a week from today or a week from next Wednesday, I guess, is when that will likely change. But they do have some things they can and can't say. But it would be nice to come out to sellers and say, hey, this is a temporary thing. This is not an ongoing thing. Something we're dealing with on a short-term basis. Even if they don't give us specifics, that would be a lot better than where we are right now. Unfortunately, it's just one of those things.
All right, Chris, one more, then we got to get into it here. We're gonna run out of time.
Yeah, we had a couple variations of this, so I wanted to throw this one up.
Okay.
What are your thoughts about posting on social media, period, much less daily? Etsy store, advertising, promotions, keeping your shop in the eyes of your followers all across social media. The other version of this that we got, Scott, was specifically about Pinterest. So what are your thoughts on social media? Where does that fall into that external marketing mix that we were just talking about?
Yeah, I think we did this question a couple weeks ago as well. Someone had said that they were getting a significant amount of traffic from Pinterest, but it wasn't converting. That's my only issue whenever we are getting external traffic from these social media outlets, because a lot of times they're not necessarily searching for the product. If you go on Etsy, you're looking to buy products. If you're on Pinterest, you're getting ideas, not ready to buy. If you're on Instagram, you're not looking to buy. If you're on TikTok, you're not looking to buy. Now that is changing a little bit on TikTok, because TikTok is definitely a place that is becoming more of like a TikTok shop. So that's probably better time better spent there than I would even say Pinterest, because TikTok explicitly had said that they are going to be really doubling down on this. And I have to be honest, my son, who's 26, he goes on TikTok a lot to find products or even how-to stuff. So it's becoming a little YouTube / shop, kind of like go to find stuff, to get reviews, to see stuff. So I would say if there was one, it would be TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, but I also look at it as like, if you're spending time on social media, is that time you're taking away from building your email list and using something that is going to not be dependent on an algorithm? That's what I would say there, Chris.
I like it. I think trading one algorithm for the other, Scott, is not a great business model to be in, right? We're like, we don't want to have to play around with the Etsy SEO algorithm. So let me go post on social media, right? Like, it's one of those things. If you're going to do something, Pinterest would probably be the way to go. But again, that would be a lot further down the external marketing chain than the mastering email marketing, and probably even the dabbling with Facebook ads to drive some additional traffic to that email list side of things, like we were just talking about.
Yep. All right, cool. Let me go ahead and get to the listing that I wanted to share with you guys from the playbook. And I wanted to go ahead and get things queued up here, and I have them. So here we go. All right. So I wanted to share with you a listing that is converting above 5% and has gotten over 7,000 sales. This is coming from, we put together what we call now our conversion maximizer playbook. So I'm going to actually dive into this playbook, because what we did was we took 25 listings that were converting above 3% and we broke them down. So this way here, we are able to, try to find out what are the differences. Is there something we're missing? Is there something that we can tweak? Because what I've always said is, if we can take 100 visits and if we can turn them into, one sale, that's great. That's 1%. If we can turn it into 2%, that's 2 sales. That's even better. And if we can increase it to 3%, that would be 3 sales. Well, now we tripled our sales from the same amount of traffic. And that's what I want to share with you here today. So maybe there'll be something in just this one listing out of the 25, by the way, that, that might help you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up here, and we are going to look at it together. And I've got my, my good friend, Chris Schaefer, on with us, and he's going to share his thoughts on this as well. So this is, like I said, we call this our conversion maximizer playbook. You are actually looking at it. If you did want a copy of this, by the way, it is $10. We actually spent time putting this together, but more importantly, we paid a designer to make it very, very user-friendly. If you'd like a copy of this, just put conversion in the comments, conversion in the comments, and we'll send you a link to it. Like I said, it is $10, but it's going to be something that could produce, well, a lot more than $10 possibly. So let's go ahead and let's skip to the one. Well, first off, I wanted to show you this. Chris, let's talk about this real quick. This is the conversion checklist, okay? This is what we basically rated these 25 different listings. The one we're going to share with you today, you're going to see how we compared it and how we broke it down. But we have the basics in here, but also things that sometimes people are just missing. We've seen listings, and I think this listing that we're going to share with you actually didn't have all of these in place. So they could actually probably even increase it, all right? But we're looking at a readable title, quality of the main image, because the main image is the first thing you see that's going to make you want to click. 10 images used, star seller badge, return policy. Is that filled out? That's another big one. A lot of people leave that off. We got to make sure that that's there because we want to give Etsy what it wants. All right. Great reviews, great description, 13 tags that are being used fully, shipping under $6, which that is something new that Etsy came out and said, if you're going to be $6 or more, we're not going to show you as much in search, or at least we might not, but we know that they meant we're not. And then from there, free shipping, $35 plus can also help increase those conversions. Chris, before we dive into it, did you want to add anything here?
Yeah. So I think the question that I have, because I know it's going to come up if you and I don't address it, is why do we treat the free shipping over 35 different from the shipping under 6? Why are those two different signals that we're looking for?
Yeah, well, the shipping under $6 is directly from Etsy saying, like, if you don't do that, we are going to basically not prioritize your listing. The free shipping 35 plus is a conversion thing that will actually get someone to go, oh, free shipping, $35 plus. I think I want to get this because it's free shipping. So I'm going to add more to the cart. So one is more of a SEO play. The other one is more of a conversion play, although free shipping is free shipping, right? But to get the free shipping on the other, we would have to spend $35.
I think, yeah, that makes perfect sense. The shipping under 6 is a new thing as of October 1st. It's a separate signal. You could have something that is under $6 and also free shipping over 35, right? So if it's a $25 thing, maybe they don't get free shipping, but it's $4. But if you still have that free shipping over 35 policy, it's another signal to Etsy and it's another conversion driver. It also just happens to increase average cart value because they're trying to get over that free shipping threshold.
Yeah, perfect. All right, cool. Let's get into it. So Mrs. White's last nerve. Oh, look, it's on fire. All right. So this is a funny candle. And these are, I believe, handmade. But basically, if you look right here, and I've got my little marker here, this is monthly sales. So 254. We've got 7,160. And this is the time of us taking these screenshots. It's probably more now. And then here, the conversion rate is 5.83%. And they've got 1,600 reviews. All right. So that's pretty good. All right. Not too bad. But now what we want to do is we want to go through here and we want to see some of these things that we're cross-checking here. Now, first thing that we do is we're looking here. We're looking at the title. All right. That's the first thing that we're looking at, even though right now the main image is the thing that everyone is going to see when they're scanning. But without a good title that has the keywords, all right, we're not going to show up. So no one's going to see our images anyway. So that's why that's the first thing that we're looking at. They've done a good job here. Teacher's last nerve. Oh, that's going to block it, isn't it? Teacher's last nerve candle. Personalized candle, back to school teacher gift, teacher appreciation gift, funny teacher gift, and teacher Christmas. So they covered everything. But the main one is going to be probably right in here. Teacher's last nerve candle. So someone's searching for that. Or you could even argue and say the teacher back to school teacher gift. And then it could also be teacher appreciation gift. Those are all in there. Okay. Now, moving on to this over here, this is the images. Now they also have, and this is an important piece, is they have a video that is there. Okay. Now we all know as you're scrolling, you're going to see that video play. All right. Now, one other thing I want to bring up is this is a pretty nice image. right? This is a pretty nice image. It looks like it could be in a classroom. It's got some matches alongside it. It's got that look where it's got a piece of wood on the bottom of it. It's got a little plant in the background. It's got what we call shallow depth of field or a blurry background, which looks more professional. This looks like a professional shot, but it's also a very clear shot, and it shows exactly what you're getting. Anything you want to say there, Chris, on the image on this one?
I think the first two things that we look at, Scott, are the title and the image. Why is that? Because those are the two things people see, not just on the listing, but also on the search page, right? So if they're not seeing what we're seeing when we look at this, if these two don't pass muster, then nothing else we're doing really makes a lot of sense. I want to go back to the title for just a second, because this is not a perfect title. It doesn't follow the simple title structure 100%. It's pretty close that you and I talk about, but it is readable. And so what we're looking for here is not a perfectly written title. It's a human readable title. Would someone reading this, especially the first portion of this, which is what they're going to see on mobile and a lot of times in the search results, would they understand exactly what this is? Well, it's a candle, right? Let's just take everything before that first comma, Scott. It's a candle. It's for teachers, and it has something to do with their last nerve. Well, teacher's last nerve candle. That tells me exactly what this is. The rest of this title, probably irrelevant other than from a keyword perspective, because if somebody's looking for a gift for a teacher, they're going to go, that's funny, or that there's funny, right? And click on the listing and then commit. Once they're in here, because on the listing or on the search side of things, they're not going to see this first image. They are going to see the video. I think that's something important to note. We're going to put that kind of on the back burner for now if we're not using video, something we want to do to improve that click-through rate, which is one of the early signals to Etsy that we have a quality listing. But when we're looking at this first image, which is what people are going to see when they come to the listing, does this match with the expectation that is created when they read the title? So teacher's last nerve candle, is it a good quality image? Yeah. Does it match the expectations that's created? Yes, it very clearly says Mrs. White's last nerve. Oh, look, it's on fire, right? So they immediately make that connection. Not only is it a good looking image, but it makes that connection between the title and the expectation that's created in the mind of the potential customer as soon as they come to the listing. The only weirdness here, and I want to ask all the teachers to give me a comment down below, are you allowed to have things that you can light on fire in your classroom? Less the candle and more the matches is my concern here, but that has nothing to do with the optimization of the listing. It's a really nice photo, just something that occurred to me as we were looking at this. I was like, I can't imagine my brother having matches in his classroom at school and them allowing him to do that. But I'm curious for any of the teachers who are watching this, if that's something you're allowed to do. But it's really all about creating that connection, having a good quality image that clearly showcases the product, and make sure that you're creating that connection in the mind of the customer with the expectation that they have when they read a human readable title.
Yeah. And so I also want to draw attention here, and they're running a sale. And if you look now, this is something new that Etsy has been doing. And if you're not running a sale, you don't get something like this. It says new markdown, biggest sale in 60 plus days. Okay. So also you get this, sale ends in 23 hours. Okay. So we get a little bit of scarcity there. So you also get this guy, the 25% off. Okay. So all of that stuff is a conversion trigger, if you will, like where it's going to get someone to look at it and go, oh, wait a minute here. They're running a sale. It brought your attention there. If they were just selling this for $9.50, you wouldn't get the same effect because you wouldn't have color included here. You wouldn't have the green, right? You wouldn't have the new markdown thing. So all of that stuff, that's a big driver for getting people to want to take action and buy this thing. And you can see here, another little piece of social proof, as we call this, is we have 20 plus in the cart. All right. Or in people's carts. So that's another good sign. This here, personalization, I highlighted it over here a second ago as you were talking, Chris, and that's covering it up, but you get what I'm doing here. Personalized, that's another keyword that's included here. And even though it's here, it could be personalized teachers candle, right? And then they're going to find this because they have teachers, they have personalized, they have candle, right? So if someone was searching for a personalized teacher gift or a personalized, did I say personalized twice? Yeah, personalized teacher's gift, they are going to be able to find this listing because it is optimized for that in the title. All right. So
I think your verbal slip of the tongue there is a good moment to say we don't have to keep adding the word personalized in there. If it's in
That's
there
true.
once, it's in there more than enough, right? So Etsy now understands that we qualify for personalized, whether we're saying it's a personalized gift or a personalized teacher gift, we qualify for both of those. We don't have to put that in there multiple times.
True. The other thing is they have a good amount of reviews. So that was really, really good to see. So they have a lot of reviews. Now, you might be looking at this, go, well, I don't have that many reviews. No, but you can work towards getting more reviews. Like that's the thing, right? Make customers happy. And Etsy literally just came out and said, you're going to be rewarded for better customer service. We're going to actually give you better ranking if you are doing better by the customer. So that may take some time, but it's something to work on and consciously be working on. These are the images. We actually pulled all these and had our designer put these into one grouping so you can see them all. But you have here, like, I believe it's Coach Courtney. You have Miss Sydney's psychologist's last nerve, Chad's last nerve. So they're showing you different examples and different colors in here in different images. They also have the candle sizing guide, which I think is really important because once again, we said images just don't have to represent the product. They have to also answer questions that you might have. They're like, oh, the 4 ounce, how big is that? Here's the height. Here's the width. Here's the other one. Here's the other, like, so they're giving that for the 16 ounce. Okay. And then they're basically saying burn hours because you might have said, or they might have received questions. How long do these last? Well, they're going to put that in there. So this image does a really good job of explaining things that might be in the description. But guess what? People might not read the description and they read this. So that helps convert it higher. All right. Candle care. How do you care for it? So a lot of times these are just questions that are put into an image to help answer that, just like you would on a sizing chart to make people be able to identify what one will fit them best. All right. And then their candle scent plus wax color. They give all of those. Down here, they're showing a little bit of behind the scenes. Thank you for supporting, so all of that stuff. They have gift wrapping available. So they show you that. And then they have a picture, it looks like, of husband and wife. I'm guessing, I don't know. It's a couple, and they are probably the ones behind the brand, which I think is a brilliant idea because people want to buy from people. Or as Etsy says, make commerce human again, I believe is their slogan now. So that's what we took away from doing this one. We're moving through the description now. And then in here, we're writing a few things like sustainable gift wrapping. We're not going to read through all of this, but you go down here, check this out. Okay. We have returns and exchange not accepted. Why are we even including that? Because if you don't fill that out, it's one thing that Etsy would say, well, you didn't fill that out, so it's not fully completed. And we want to make sure that our customers or your customers are aware of your exchange policy and returns. So that's why we have a check there. Some people leave that blank. You don't want to leave it blank. Cost of shipping, $5.75. Oh, it's below $6. I think that's probably good. And then here we have a star seller badge. So these green little check boxes are us giving it a score. And then if we go down here, we go to the tags. There's 13 tags that they've used all of those tags. We have FAQs. We have cross sales. There's your cross sales that we talked about. Buy together, get free shipping. That's your $35, right? So if you buy more, you're going to be able to get that. All right. And then down here, we have readable title, quality. So all of this stuff, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. And then what we did is we went through and we had some takeaways. So video shows the sellers and handmade process, sale ending soon, review photos, personalization options, helpful FAQs, lots of helpful information in the images, and scannable description. All right. So that's what we do, guys. We are like literally obsessed with this because if there's something that we see here, we're like, wow, we're not doing that. We should probably do that. And let me know in the comments. Was this helpful? Did you see something that you could possibly add to your listing or tweak your listing that you're not doing right now by looking at what we just went through? So I'd be curious. Let us know that in the comments. Also, if you would like a copy of all of the other ones that we did, like I said, we did 25 of these, broke them all down. If you would like a copy of this, it is $10, like I said. But if you would like a copy of this, just put conversions in the comments and we will get you a link to it. It's $10, guys. And you'll get access to this complete playbook. All right. So Chris, anything you want to add to that before we wrap up?
I think that specific listing, all of the listings that are in there are great, but that specific listing does a lot of things well that we see Etsy sellers struggle with. Scott, they have 3 different options. I think it was like color, scent, and the personalization.
Yep.
What a lot of Etsy sellers end up doing that is a conversion rate killer is instead of explaining those in the description and giving a clear explanation, they make an image with all of the color options in it, which is kind of worthless in most cases, right? Or they take up a whole bunch of image slots with a bunch of different colors, and maybe they'll put one in there for the scents, and then they're down 2 images that could potentially contribute to the conversions. The better way to do that is how this listing is handling it. Instead of trying to show every candle in their images in a different color, they're saying, here's the color options, right? Here's like one image that's all of the color options, or one place in the description where we tell you all of the color options. Then they did 2 other clever things in the description. There's 2 big things that would stop people from buying a candle. One is size of a candle, like 16 ounces, doesn't really mean anything to candle consumers, I guess, or like people who burn candles. What matters is burn time. And in most cases, when you see a candle listing on Etsy, you'll see people say, hey, it's a 12 ounces, it's 16 ounces, it's a 36 ounces, 72 ounce, it's the big Bubba candle, right? Whatever it is. And that doesn't mean anything to people. And I think even if you're not selling candles, this is something you can take away from this listing. If you look at the product description on that listing, what do? They give you a conversion chart to say, if you're getting this size, it will burn for about this long. That's what people care about. People don't care what the material is as much as they care about how it will feel for the t-shirt, right? Same thing applies with the candles. What is the thing that can stop them from buying that? And then the other thing would be, well, what does the scent smell like? I understand that it says Fruit Loops, but does it really smell like Fruit Loops? You look at the description there, they're explaining exactly what it's supposed to smell like. The Fruit Loops one, I think their description says something like, should be obvious. It smells exactly like your favorite childhood cereal. But then they had another one that was like, hey, it smells like Peachy Rings or whatever the candy is. And so they're giving a very easy way for people who have a question or a doubt about one of those options, whether it's the size or the scent, to be able to easily answer that question. And that's the point of a good product description. So even if you don't look at the other ones, which you should when you get the conversion maximizer guide, I think that listing specifically will help people figure out how to deal with their listings, especially if you have multiple options. They're a great guide for you to figure out how to do the different parts of your listing so that it converts at a much higher rate.
Nice. All right, cool. So hopefully that was helpful, guys. Chris, do we have time to do my last little bit there, or?
I do if you do.
Yeah, I'm good. Okay, cool. And then guys, we'll leave like, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. We'll be able to answer some questions. We're going a little bit long here today, but we had a bunch to cover, a lot of questions, and we appreciate you guys asking them for sure. So yeah, so let me go ahead and I'm going to tee this one up, Chris. I might handle this one completely on my own, but I'll come to you if I need any help there. And let's get this show on the road, because I think this one is going to be very, very helpful too, guys. Because I think people try to I guess, figure that if there's more, then it's going to create more opportunity. And I think that's the opposite. So it'll make more sense when I go through this. All right, here we go. So why adding more products to your Etsy shop might be hurting your sales. Now, you would think up front, well, I want to have as many products that I can in that shop. So this way here, I've got more lines in the water, right? I've got more chances for people to find my products. And in theory, yeah, that makes sense. But there's a couple of problems with that. And there's actually a better way, and actually a way that you'll spend less time and probably be less frustrated because you're not getting the sales and the traffic that you think you should be getting from all of these listings. And I know there's a lot of Etsy gurus out there saying, just keep posting. The more you post, you're going to get brought up in search because Etsy likes new listings and they're going to start promoting your stuff. I don't believe that theory and that strategy. So I can't speak to that. I've never done that. I won't do that. I think what I'm going to be sharing with you is a lot easier. Well, it's simpler, not necessarily easier, because it is going to require some work, but it is going to also have a better long-term effect. All right. So I'm just going to dig into it. I already covered The big myth, more products, more sales. I think that's a myth. All right. So number one, if you do that, if you launch a whole bunch of products, here's what's going to probably happen. Number one is your quality is going to probably be low. Now, nothing against you. It's just if you're going to try to list and create 5 products a day and upload those, or even 2 products a day, maybe even 1 product a day, it might be too much because you've got limited time. So now you're going to rush to get products up there. So you're also going to be, you're going to be probably not picking the right products because you're in a hurry. So whenever you're trying to do, I guess I'm going to throw as much up there as I can kind of strategy, you're going to suffer on the quality of not just the products, but also on the product research. All right. And that's a big one because it's one thing to say, I've got 500 listings, but if no one's searching for these things, and if you haven't optimized it well, and if your designs, I'll just say it, are crap, it's going to be hard for you to make sales. All right. So you have to get in the right mind as far as I need to create quality products from quality research. All right. I would rather have less because I believe that time focus there is going to yield me a bigger return. All right. Now, the other thing is that a lot of people don't talk about is when you have all these products, it also adds complexity. It adds more to manage. All right. You're going to be doing a lot of work for not a lot of return. All right. And you're probably going to be frustrated and overwhelmed and stressed. And we don't want to do that. So we want to think to ourselves, how can we spend our time wisely? That's what we want to do. So the better option is this. I'm going to give you, there's 5 things here that I'm going to share with you. Number 1, find products that have good demand. Spend the time there. Now I'm going to back up for a second. All right. Before we even start finding products, I'm assuming if you're watching this video, maybe you're new, I don't know, but you should be focusing on a specific niche. And the reason why is because if we do, we're able to now sell that customer not just 1 item, but maybe 3 items. You might have seen recently that Etsy rolled out their new bundle feature. Well, if you have products that go together, you can turn on the bundle feature and it will increase your conversions on other products. So I'm just assuming that that's already happening. If it's not, that's another thing that you need to consider. And you need to figure out what is the niche that you are going to be focusing on. Now, I'm going to call a little bit of a timeout. I actually created a roadmap that walks you through how we've been doing it and how we've been doing it for years in just e-commerce in general, because that's what we're doing here is we're building a brand. If you'd like a copy of what we call our 100K blueprint, our roadmap, go ahead and put 100K in the comments. It'll go through the strategy of building out an Etsy shop. So this way here, you can have multiple products, but also targeting a niche. All right. 100K, drop it in the comments and I'll send you a copy. All right. So number 1 is finding products that have good demand, obviously that are in a specific niche. Spending the time there. If you're not yet using a tool, my tool of recommendation is Everbee. That's what I use. That's all I've ever used. And that's what I'm spending my time doing, is researching using a tool like that. If you have not yet tried it, you can try it for free. Go to brandcreators.com/Everbee and you can try it for free. And yes, you'll buy me a cup of coffee and I love my coffee and you'll help support the channel. And thank you. But even if you don't, you got to figure out what products are being searched for and that people are buying. If you don't, we're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing if it sticks. And that to me is wasting time. All right. So that's number 1. Number 2, create high quality products. Because we're only focusing on a handful of products at first. If you're just starting, I always tell people start with 5 products that are in demand. And then you can spend more time making those products really good, making good designs. Okay. So that's number 2, spending time to create high quality designs. Number 3, very similar, is we're going to be able to now create high quality listings. Okay. If you are creating products and just throwing them up there and you're trying to get 100 products up in a week, you're probably not going to have that good of listings that are optimized. All right. They're just not going to be. And now you're like, well, why aren't they selling? Well, because your images aren't good. Okay. And people see that and they're like, it doesn't look that great. All right. Then you're going to get maybe you do have a product that comes through and you get a sale and you get a negative review because, well, they got it and it's not what they thought it was going to be. Now you got a negative review, right? So it just starts to snowball in the wrong way. Okay. So we don't want to do that. Now, what we can do though, is because we're focusing on a handful of products to start with, we can focus on creating some really high quality listings and we can optimize for SEO and conversions. All right. The big one here is conversions. I talk a lot about conversions because, well, if you have 300 people that see your listing and you convert at 1%, that's one sale or 3 sales. If you have 100 visits and you convert at 1, well, that's 1 sale, right? So now, wouldn't we want to increase that maybe to 3%, maybe? Well, by doing, the optimization for conversions, we're going to be focusing on title. We're going to be focusing on images. We're going to be focusing on sale. Are we going to be tags? All of these different areas, which actually we geek out about are a lot about here. We actually created a conversion maximizer playbook where we went through and we really looked at 25 high converting listings and we analyzed what are they using? What are they doing that we might not be doing? And we broke it down. It's about 85 pages long. If you'd like a copy of it, just put conversions in the comments. It is $10. I'll tell you that right now. I paid a designer to make it user-friendly because how I was using it, it wasn't user-friendly. It was just for me. But I turned that into a guide, a playbook. If you'd like a copy, conversions in the comments, and we'll send you a copy. And just to be clear, it is $10. I know it's big price tag, but it could help you. So I think it's worth it. All right, moving on. Number 4, focus on marketing. And what I'm talking about marketing here, and not to get too advanced, is there's 2 things. Etsy ads, that's marketing within Etsy, and then email list building and email marketing. Those would be the other 2 that I would say are extremely, extremely important. All right. And then number 5 is better customer service, to get better reviews, because Etsy said it, if we can get better customer satisfaction, they're going to promote us. And guess what? When we have better reviews, that also shows Etsy, hey, these guys are doing a pretty good job. And when people come to our listing, we can convert higher, which we just talked about, because we have reviews that are, well, they're going to be better. And that's going to make someone that's a customer that's never seen your stuff before, they're going to be able to convert higher. All right. And they're going to be able to trust you now. All right. So those are the 5 things. So this whole thing about adding more, doing more, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to bring you more sales. If anything, it's going to hurt your sales, and it could probably do something even worse. It could make you feel frustrated and wanting to quit. And that's a big thing for a lot of people, because they do all this work. They listen to this one Etsy guru, this other Etsy guru, and they're saying to do this, and they're saying to do that, and you do that, and you don't get the results. Well, it's probably because you're just trying to do too much, and you think that more is better, when actually less is more, in my opinion. So I would say focus on doing less, but the right things. And from there, you'll have a much greater chance of succeeding on Etsy. And that's what I got for you, Chris.
I like that one, man. I don't know. One of the things that's interesting to me is how many different ways you and I can talk about the bad versus the good. Right? Like and I think this is kind of the overall theme of today anyway, is like, Etsy is dead. It's the death of Etsy sellers. It's really not. It's just the death of the easy or the lazy way of doing Etsy.
Yeah. And
so I think if we think about it through that lens, things become a lot easier. And I saw somebody in the comments a little while ago said, it doesn't make any sense, the stuff you guys are talking about. People don't have enough time to sink into all of these different things that you were talking about. And here's the deal, right? If you want to grow a business, you have to understand both sides of this. And this is why we broke down marketing, that 9-letter word that no one wants to hear, into those 4 distinct phases that we were talking about earlier. If you don't want to deal with an email list, you don't have to. You are missing out on stability and you're missing out on a lot of those kinds of things. But even if you can only master the conversions side of this, it will get you a lot further down the road than just saying everything is fine. I'm just going to launch more products. The answer is not more products equaling more sales. It's finding good products, creating good designs, creating high quality listings, and then doing just a little bit of marketing or a little bit of optimization on the back end. That's going to be the key to success. And quite honestly, it always was. It was just so much easier to create as many products as possible and not even think about it in the past. That is the past. The only thing other than death and taxes that is guaranteed in this life is that things will continue to change. If you don't think that the algorithm will continue to change, that the opportunity will continue to change, that the way Etsy shows sellers or Amazon or Temu or TikTok shops shows sellers will change, you're missing out on something. And usually you're missing out on the basics. And these basics have been true for a long time. It's just we could get away with it for a while. Right.
Yeah.
They weren't watching every play for an extra pass interference penalty, or they weren't reviewing everything. So maybe you could step out of bounds a little bit before. Guess what? Now there's instant replay. Now there's challenges. Now there's all those things in the NFL. You can't get away with not actually catching the ball in the end zone and getting it called a touchdown. It's going to get overturned. The same thing is happening in the Etsy ecosystem. It's the same thing we saw happen with Facebook and Amazon and all of the other things people have been shouting from the rooftops that are opportunities over the last few years. It will change. But if you master the basics never really do. There's some small tweaks around the edges, but the fundamentals keep that foundation solid.
Yeah, I want to throw this up here. Treat it like an elephant, one bite at a time. Improve one part a week. By end of year, you will be there. Yeah, there's a great book out there called The Compound Effect. And actually, my 16-year-old daughter is reading that right now. So it really does come down to you have to keep things simple, but you have to also, you have to think bigger. Doesn't mean you have to do it all, but it also means focusing on the right things and not saying like, well, I don't want to spend on Etsy ads, so I'm going to do social media because I'm going to just post a whole bunch on Instagram. It's like, is your time worth anything? Because you're going to spend all that time when you could have just had traffic on the platform that you're trying to make a sale on, by the way. And you're able to be able to do that, which, by the way, Chris, we should probably mention that because I know Etsy ads comes up quite a bit. We do have a guide for that too, guys. If you want that, just put in ads in the comments and we'll send you a copy of that for the Etsy ads. Cause I know that, we talk a lot about it, but it's super, super easy. Ryan Lee with us in the house today. What up, Ryan? I'll be talking to you a little while, buddy. I'm always love Ryan Lee. And anyway, Chris, I wanted to just say, like, it just comes down to keeping it simple. Don't overcomplicate it, but also trying to put the blinders on so you're not distracted by the mug that's selling $5,000 a month. The avocado mug that Chris has, that's selling $5,203 a month.
They're all coming to me. It's fine.
They're all coming. I
have just cabinets full of dancing avocado mugs. Did you have a couple minutes to do some quick Q&A? I know we have a few in the queue that we can.
Yeah, let's knock through a few. Let's try to do these in fire round.
Elysian wanted to know, am I the only one yelling pivot every time these guys are talking about making some changes to their Etsy shop? Elysian dropping the Friends reference in the chat there. I'm using your giveaway strategy to build an email list. Can I advertise that in my Etsy banner? Yes, you can put it in your shop description. You can put it in the banner. You don't want to be messaging this to people one-on-one, but in that first follow-up message on the purchase, you can let people know that you have the VIP list, and that's a perfectly acceptable strategy. With the drop shipping rules changing, which they haven't really changed on Etsy, they've just changed their policies around a little bit. You still can't drop ship. How do you think that this will impact shops who use Chinese print-on-demand services? I use one that has decent PJ bottoms, so this is something that does worry me. So I think rather than the Etsy rules, what Fatty Pancake is talking about here is more the proposal we talked about a few weeks ago, where they're getting rid of that small shipment exemption to tariffs. If it's something that will be impacted by that, and I believe clothing was, like anything fabric related, was something that was being exempted from the exemption.
Mhm.
I think is how you would say that.
Yeah.
They were
Like
removed from the exemption. We'll
Yeah.
go with it that way. Then that would be something to pay attention to if you're using a foreign, especially a Chinese service, because that seemed to be where they were targeted. CB said, you guys were looking at that candle listing. I sell wax melts and have 8 cents on each listing and have a description of the cents as a picture. Should I do one listing per cent to allow for more photos? I want to get your opinion on this, Scott, but for me, it would be less about the photos and more about how easily that listing is found and what the customer behavior is. So if they're just searching for fun wax melts, that's one thing. If they're searching for fall wax melts and you have a pumpkin spice and a scarecrow and a last football game of the season wax melt, then you can keep all of those together. But if they're searching for, here's one you'll like, mahogany wax melts, then you probably want that one to be on its own listing. So if it's a generic concept, then I think I would bundle those together, or like wood scented, right? If that's the keyword that you're seeing come up, then mahogany, cedar, all of those kinds of things you could have on one listing if there's a common theme. If you're selling peach and mahogany and pumpkin spice on the same listing, there's probably not a single term people would be using to find those. So I would probably split them up so that you get that in the title and have that as a separate listing. Does that make sense? Is that the same approach you're thinking about? Just
100%.
looking at this?
Yeah. 100%.
I have 2 Etsy shops because I sell handmade sewn items and I sell fabric sewing supplies. So should I have 2 of them, or is that one that could serve the same niche?
Yeah. I mean, so if you're selling stuff that you are sewing, right? And then you also have things that you are selling for people that sew, like it makes sense to sell it on the same. I don't know why we would split that up unless you didn't want people knowing like your fabric costs a certain or your thread costs a certain thing. And you're like, well, I don't want them to know I only paid 20 cents a spool. You know what I mean? Like if that was the thing, but I don't think that's the case. I mean, they're basically thinking like you painted it in a sense, right? If you're buying a painting, the paint wasn't expensive. It was the painter that created the painting. Same thing with a photographer. The photography paper that we printed on doesn't cost that much. It's the photographer that captured the image. So I would basically keep it on one because then you're going to be able to really kind of build that out more and get people that are going to come in and one person might be like, I want you to sew this one thing, but I also am an amateur sewer and I want to sew myself. Is there such a thing as an amateur sewer? I don't know.
Maybe a seamstress?
Seamstress? Okay.
What is it's the only thing I can think of that goes with people who sew. Like a professional sewer, someone who sews professionally would usually be a seamstress or a seamstrer. I don't know what the male version of that would be.
If you know, leave it in the comments, please.
Yeah, someone correct me violently in the comments below. Fatty Pancake said, I spent so much money on Facebook ads with very little return. Whatever Etsy is doing to put my listings in front of people, it works. And they have a whole team of people who are nerdier than I am, which I know is hard to put together, that run their offsite ads. And this is something like whenever people are like, I turned off offsite ads. Well, first of all, that just told me you're selling less than $10,000 in a year, which means your shop's not as successful as you probably want it to be. But even if you're not, right, you running that, unless you are an ads genius, is not going to perform as well as the way that Etsy runs it. So quite honestly, the fees, even though they're higher than if you're getting the traffic from within Etsy, and they should be because there's a fixed cost and the salaries that go along with the people that are doing that, still going to be less than you doing it yourself. And you don't have to worry about pixels and tracking and all of the super nerdy stuff that goes into running successful offsite ads. You can just focus on getting those sales. So if you're seeing traffic coming from offsite ads, don't be freaked out by that. In fact, embrace it because it means Etsy thinks your listing is worth advertising. And one last one here, Scott, unless one snuck in. Did I hear you say that if you're a new seller, you're not going to get seen, or just lazy sellers won't get seen moving forward?
Let me read that again. I got to make sure I understand this.
Did I hear you say that if you're a new seller on Etsy, that you're not going to get seen moving forward, or just that people using that lazy selling method won't get seen moving forward?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the lazy Etsy seller that we're referring to is basically just wanting to, you could be a seasoned seller and be the lazy seller because you were basically kind of already doing what or you were doing something that was working but isn't going to work the same, as you're going to have to put in more work, is what I'm saying. So no, a new seller, if you come in and you're doing what we're talking about here today and you're building out a full e-commerce brand, that's kind of how we look at it. You should be able to have as much opportunity as anyone else that's optimizing, for SEO, optimizing for conversions. But again, that's going to require the work. So no, I think you have a great opportunity as a new seller to be a very serious seller, and one that is learning and practicing marketing, and also very, very basic, but usually underdone, I guess, is, I don't even know what the word I'm looking for there, but basically not building an e-commerce brand the way that you should to get optimal results, right? Doesn't mean it's got to be a ton of work. It just means you have to understand the principles. That's why we're coming here and showing up live, to try to educate people on what it really means to be an e-commerce brand and not just be an Etsy seller. Okay. So hopefully that answered that.
We got all kinds of drama going on in the comments now. If we're talking, Scott, specifically about someone who makes clothing, then it would be seamstress and tailor.
Okay.
Right. Apparently, sewer or sewist is also acceptable as a gender neutral generic thing. So we learned something today, right? MOM says sewist works too. So there we go. Sewist is the
Here's the difference. Here's the difference between me and Chris. Chris just got that piece of data that you plugged in his head. I won't remember that tomorrow. Okay. Chris will be like, yeah, remember yesterday they said it was a tailor or a seamstress. And I was like, yeah, I think I let that go. It just doesn't grab like it grabs Chris's brain. It sticks really good to his brain.
I know nothing useful, but now I know that sewist.
So if I know, guess what? I'm going to ask Chris tomorrow and he'll tell me.
See, your problem is you have hair. And when you have hair, you don't have room for all of those things that are.
Is that it?
Yeah, I think that's the difference. I'm learning through osmosis, right? Word to skin contact. You don't have that opportunity. So that makes the difference. But I think with that, Scott, I think that's all the questions we had for today. What do you want to leave people with, and how can they catch up with us next?
Yeah, no, I want to say thanks so much, guys. Number one, we had a big crowd here today, touching 300 people on this live stream. So I want to thank you guys. And if you guys have not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so. We want to thank you guys also too. We probably should do a dedicated one, Chris, to celebrate our 100,000 subscribers that we hit, which took 9 years to get there, by the way. But we did it. And I want to thank you guys if we haven't done so already. But yeah, really, I just want to leave you with this is, if you're just thinking about using Etsy as a way to make some extra money without doing the extra work, it's going to be extremely hard. And I would probably say don't do it. And I know that's hard for someone that's an educator in this space now to basically come out and say, don't do it if you think you're just going to slap up products and you're going to be able to just cash the checks. But what I am saying is if you understand the business side of it, which we've went over here in detail today, and if you understand it, you're building a brand for a niche with multiple products, and you're starting to understand marketing, and you're going to learn marketing, and you're going to really build out that skill set, then you're going to do great. And you're also going to be learning something that you're going to take and you're going to bring to your next thing, because there will be a next thing. Trust me, I've been at this for 20 years. So these marketing skills, I've been building this skill set for 20 years. And it just happens that I'm using it right now for the Etsy platform and outside of that. So that's all. Just want to leave you with that. But again, if you want some of those resources, make sure that you drop them in the comments, and we will be back here next week with another live stream. If you guys have any topics that you want us to address, make sure that you post them in the comments as well. And well, until next time, guys, take care, take action, have an awesome, amazing day, and we'll see you right back here on the next episode. Take care, guys.